Have you found your dream job as a developer? Or are you stuck in an unfulfilling job? On WeAreDevelopers.com, you find over 1,000 jobs in Europe that fit the tech stack that you want to work with, and salaries go up to $130K. All you have to do is create a free profile, and you automatically get matched with jobs that fit your requirements. So what are you waiting for? Create your...
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to WeAreDevelopers Live. I hope you are all well and healthy. My name is Sead and I will help you navigate through the day. Before we start, I want to remind you that the WeAreDevelopers World Congress, the world's largest congress for developers, is taking place as an online event at the end of June. So make sure to check it out at wearedevelopers.com/world-congress and save your spot. There will be an incredible speaker lineup, including the inventor of the World Wide Web, Sir Tim Berners-Lee, the co-founder of Stack Overflow, Jeff Atwood, the creator of Angular and AngularJS, Mishko Hevery, and many other industry leaders. You don't want to miss that event, so please check it out and get your early bird ticket. Also, if you're looking for a job or you want to explore the job market for tech talents in Europe, check out wearedevelopers.com and maybe there is something interesting for you as well. And with that said, what's on the plate for today? The need to quickly deliver high quality software products to the market is rising continuously, and therefore the role of DevOps becomes more and more important. And that's reason enough for us to dedicate a full day to DevOps topics. We are going to start with a workshop about proactive monitoring and smoke testing. We will talk today about continuous deployment, about the GitLab CI pipelines, infrastructure as a code, with some very nice examples as well. We'll talk about containers and we will hear some cool stories surrounding Kafka. So make sure to take the opportunity to engage and connect with the speakers. You have a Q&A tool right beside the stream on wearedevelopers.com/live. Ask your questions. The workshop hosts and speakers will be very happy to answer all of your questions during and right after their sessions. And as always, please comply with our code of conduct. Here's a short video about that. And in the meantime, I'm going to get our workshop host on stage. So welcome back everyone. I am here with Liam and Jan. So Liam, nice to meet you. How are you?
I am very well, Sead. Thank you for inviting us and thank you for this introduction. Yeah, very good today. Absolutely.
Yes, very much looking forward to your workshop. Maybe you can briefly introduce you about the topics and what we will learn from you today.
Yes, absolutely. As you just mentioned there, Sead, today's all about DevOps. So we've picked a topic which is in line with that to focus on the whole area, I guess, of proactive monitoring. And as part of that, we're going to be focusing today on smoke testing, particularly to help, improve your kind of speed of deployments and focusing on your production environment. So yeah, it's actually a workshop. So as you said, we're going to be getting hands-on and we'll hopefully get some great questions from the audience as well. So it's going to be a really exciting and hands-on workshop, and I'm going to be working with Jan here to help us, give us some of his experience and some interesting kind of use cases as well. So yeah.
Okay, thanks for the nice introduction. I would say let's just get started and the stage is yours.
Thank you, and welcome everyone to the first workshop of your DevOps day today, where we're going to be looking at proactive monitoring and smoke testing in your production environment. So you're very welcome to this session. My name's Liam Hurrell, and I'm joined by Jan Kunzmann. So I'm going to start with just a really brief introduction. We're very lucky to have Jan with us today. Jan is a solutions consultant, and I'm a senior technical training specialist. So I think it's nice that everyone here gets a little bit of an idea about where we come from. Both of us are from New Relic. I've been at New Relic for nearly 3 years now. So I'm focusing on putting together sessions that really work with direct developers and DevOps teams, but sharing, the technologies and the strategies that we put out into the market. Jan, how are you today? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm great here on my little Zoom island. So yeah, as you said, I'm a solutions consultant with New Relic, so working in the sales organization, but I have a long time background as DevOps and a site reliability engineer. So I've been hitting the problems which we discussed today and which we also try to provide solutions for. I've been hitting them quite frequently in my past. So doing on-call engineering, having issues after deployments and these things. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that today.
Hey, brilliant, Jan, and yeah, you're making us all very jealous with your background there. So, but that's great. So let's have a look at what we're going to cover in today's session. So a couple of housekeeping points we mentioned there at the top. Say I'd mentioned the questions. Please do, if you have any questions, do put those into the questions panel. What we're going to do is we've been monitoring those, but the idea is that we'll have some time at the end to go through those. And so, yeah, definitely share some great questions that you have. And again, because we've got workshops and labs as part of this session, again, just reach out to the team using that panel and let us know if you have any queries or questions. But you can give us feedback and comments as well. The session is being recorded, so you can be able to access and share this after today. Let's have a look. So we've got actually a few links here for you. So for the workshop part, we're going to start off with going through some of the content and some slides. So I've got a link here to the slides, and I've also got a link here to sign up for like a free New Relic account. So you can use this for today for this workshop. And it's going to enable you to basically run some of these tests that we're going to be looking at as part of our smoke testing labs. So I think we can share these links, or if you just go to the short link here to get the slides, you'll have access to the full slide deck that we're working with here, and you can grab any of the links that we need as we go through the session. So that's NIU .to/smoke will give you access to these slides. An optional thing that you might like to add in, and it's not we don't need it yet, but it might be something that we can add in later. But as part of the test that we're going to be running, we're going to be creating some scripted browser tests. So there's different ways that we can create these, and one way which is sort of quick and handy and gives you kind of real sort of powerful way to generate scripts on your own. There's different ways, but the Selenium Chrome extension, we have a link to that, and you can just add that plugin to your Chrome browser if you're a Chrome browser user. And there's also an exporter to support that. So again, these are links, and if you get access to the slides, you should be able to access those two plugins and get those organized as well. Again, if you have any issues with these links, please do just reach out to us. Okay, so the session agenda. We're going to be working together on this, so we'll talk about what we're going to cover, and this will give you an idea about what's coming up and how the session will run. So we're going to start with just an introduction to proactive monitoring, and then dive into smoke testing, the what's, the when's, and the how's. As part of that, we've just got a couple of use cases and examples to share with you. And we'll talk about the different ways that you can go about doing this. And, I'm going to work with Jan, and Jan's going to provide some of his direct experience that, as he said, he's going to bring into this session. We're then going to look at an automated web testing solution. This is called Synthetics. It's going to enable you to set up and run these tests or put them in place so that you can deploy with confidence. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the different test types. We've got ping, simple browser, scripted browser, and API test. All of these will give you a full sort of feature set to your smoke test that you'd like to set up and put in place. Now, as part of this workshop, we have got lots of labs. So you're going to get the chance today to create and even script. And if you've got some JavaScript experience, you better follow along and create your own. But as I said, we've got a script recorder that we can use as well. And Jan's going to give us some tips on creating those scripts, and he's going to do some live kind of scripting for us. But we've also got in this slide deck here all of the samples as well. So you can just copy and paste in to make sure that you follow along the session. But that's going to be the fun part, I'm sure. And then finally, reporting on your monitors. How can you share the results and make sure that you can progress and continuous deploy with confidence. So a couple of questions. So I like to just obviously I can't actually kind of ask all these questions, but these are a nice way for us to set up the session as an introduction. So, if we ask ourselves, depending on what our role is, are we in dev or DevOps, can you deploy with confidence? These are the things, obviously, that we all kind of come up against. Is your core functionality working, particularly after some new features have been released, or maybe you want to test this in staging, just to, again, quickly understand, if the main function of whatever your services are still operational. Are specific URLs, are they always available? Are they always available from all locations? These are the sort of things that we want to make sure that we can test and have in place. Are there maybe slow pages or errors after a deploy? And can you simulate user behavior? Maybe, predict and focus on those key paths that they're going to take through your service. Maybe they might be going to, add something to a basket, or can they actually log in, or can they hit the Inquire Now button, something like this. So this is just good to set up the session, right? If we think about these, it's going to enable us to then have a look at what smoke testing is. So let's talk about the what then. What is smoke testing? Well, the idea of that couple of questions is we're going to hope to, make sure that we can deploy with confidence, and we can be sure that our sites are reachable and that the core functionality is working. So smoke testing, you might have also come across it as called things like build verification testing or confidence testing. But really, we want to focus on running some quick end-to-end tests that give immediate feedback on the core functionality or performance. So this is what smoke testing is about. It's enabling us to quickly find out if our application is still operational for those core tasks or core services that we're providing. So we need to think about and focus on the most important user workflows. So there might be a bit of sort of planning to this. Is it logging in, as I mentioned, adding things to basket? But really, what kind of testing are we focusing on here? This isn't full functionality or regression testing. This is really just maybe after a deploy or at regular intervals, we want to make sure that just the key functionality is working, and we want to know quickly. So it needs to be kind of fast, and we need to get fast answers, right? So then we can move to further testing, if you like. Jan, do you want to maybe just tell us a little bit about, give us some background to smoke testing?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, in my past, I've been in web development since the mid 90s. So in the early days, you just basically deployed your stuff. You did a little bit of manual testing, and that was it. Later, of course, you started to use more automated test tools. So in my previous job, of course, we did the usual test cadence, having unit tests, for your own development branches, doing integration tests when you merge together, doing that prior to deployment. We also had Selenium-based tests, then to do the front-end testing with that, and having also QA doing that. But we actually never really tested against production, and also really just like prior to deployment. So we did all our tests really only prior to deployment. So that unfortunately caused a couple of issues to our site. And I recall one situation where we had to fix, on a Friday actually, where we had to fix some issues with the login. So there was I think there was a connection to the Facebook OAuth. So we fixed something in our login procedure of our site. We deployed that. We did a short test that you could log in, and then went into the weekend. And unfortunately, that was the only thing that worked. So the only thing that worked over the weekend was that you could log in, right? And so the whole other functionality of our website were affected, and basically nothing worked. So these things can happen, of course, but they shouldn't happen. You should really be able to deploy with the confidence that the core functionality of your site is still working. And the core functionality, of course, should not only be to allow people to log in, so check whatever your site is actually doing.
Yeah, that's great, Jan. It takes me back as well to early days when I was a developer, and we would focus mainly on testing our unit, right? Because that's as much as you can test, certainly back then. And then you'd effectively throw it over the wall, and it would go to the implementation and deployment stages, and you would just hope that you wouldn't get a call over the weekend, as you say, because you've got many moving parts. So I think we're in that stage now where it's exciting, whereas developers and ops can work much more closely to put together these sort of tests in staging, and then have them ready also in production, so that what we're working on, we know will work with everything else that we're working on. So that's great. Okay. So should we delve into a little bit more detail then about, like, well, when should we run these tests before we get into the detail of the tests? So really, I guess, like you've mentioned there, Jan, and I was sort of mentioning, after you make, maybe updating products or adding new features. So after these fresh deployments, this is the key time that you want to make sure that everything still works, particular focus around those new deployments. But then, of course, ideally at regular intervals after that, because this is going to give you that confidence that other changes being made that maybe you're not aware of are also factored in. Again, if there's many moving parts, a lot of the more deployments you make, the higher the risk goes up. So really, we're talking about here putting these in, particularly after deployments, before and after. So we're talking about setting these up to run on any kind of test rigs that you've got, or staging environments, and having them ready to run in. You can almost test your tests and see how they perform in testing and staging before watching and making sure that they all run smoothly in your production environment. So that's the kind of the main sort of scope about planning. But just to sort of think of it in that way, as we mentioned, it's about getting some fast answers. So kind of basic tests, few key tests to focus on, like you said, not just logging in, but what are our customers or users likely to want to do. We want to make sure that all the buttons do appear, they do function correctly, or if we're relying on APIs, and this can be particularly important if we're working with mobile front ends, or just an increasing number of sort of third-party sort of features and functions that we're leveraging as part of our stack. It's going to be important to to bring those in to what we consider as part of our functionality, rather than leaving them as an outside or a third party responsibility. So picking those key tests, focusing on critical areas. And then one of the things is, because these tests need to run very quickly to give you quick answers before we can, otherwise we may need to roll back, is run these tests in parallel. Anything to add on that one, Jan, before we move into the hows?
No, not really. I mean, one thing which it should really run continuously, also to give you the confidence that if you deploy something and it was broken before, well, you should know that, right? So these tests should run continuously against your staging, against production, just to make sure that if you deploy something, you know whether it was you and what has been impacted.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. I mean, one of the benefits of having that regular testing as well is that you're going to be able to see the pattern over time of, you know, your deployments, how many of them, I guess, are ultimately successful, or where, you know, whether you're kind of maybe focusing too much on features, or maybe need to pull back and base more on stability. I mean, it's great to be able to run them ad hoc, for sure, but having them on a regular interval is going to reap, as you said, it's going to give you that much greater level of confidence as you continually, you know, test and deploy. Okay, so how do we test, or what kind of tests should we be thinking about to set up? Well, I guess there's two approaches, right? You can, you know, do things and put things together manually. You can, you know, use Selenium and these kind of different languages with Selenium to set up your own scripts. So you could kind of, like, you know, build a rig, if you like, from scratch. We're going to focus today on the automated side of things, because this is going to enable you to, as well as test on demand when you want to, but set up things on a regular schedule. So for automated solutions, you might be looking to leverage something that's sort of hosted in the cloud, and then you can kind of set up this kind of regular schedule to run from. But automated solutions are going to give you, like, you know, a framework. For sure, you can write your own scripts to decide what the functionality is that you want to test, what the API endpoints are. But as well as coding them yourself, there's different ways that you can record steps. There's tools like Catalan, Selenium IDE. If you don't want to kind of write everything from scratch in terms of building your test scripts. And of course, the power of having something that's running on a regular basis is a great opportunity to, you know, bring that together with other metric data that you might be collecting. So if you're using some kind of observability solution, it's a great way, as you said, to kind of monitor over time how those deployments are running. So it's part as well of that kind of getting proactive with your monitoring, putting the tests in place, and then once they're running, maybe working with some reporting solutions from those. Maybe you get some dashboards, or maybe you want to, you know, assemble and create some reports. And this is about then sharing those results, as well as just making sure that none of them fail, and we get alerted, or we set alarms off to check on those. But it's also about, you know, over that period of time, monitoring them with that regular basis. So a couple of use cases and examples. And what are typical tests that we might run? Well, we talked about some of them. Jan was talking there about, you know, making sure that, you know, maybe our customers can actually log in.
Not only log in, but also register, right? I mean, that's also something you should probably test, like that the registration workflow is doing its job. You might even then get the registration mail for mail account confirmation and so on. So all these things, they should work, because they're usually vital to your business.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's about thinking, isn't it? About, like, taking some of these examples, but taking them a little bit further and thinking about how they might need to be configured for your service, or your whatever kind of a site or service that you're providing. Absolutely, yeah, it's a great one. I mean, you know, we talk about, like, making sure that you can at least add an item to a cart, or maybe can you get down to product detail level. maybe if you've got some new hero products that are coming into, the higher level in the sites to promote them, maybe they're promotion products. These might work in a different way. So again, it's like, is it a feature or a function? Again, it's something that you might need to test to make sure that the folks can get there. I think, typical examples are like maybe problematic buttons appearing or not appearing, promo codes, for example. These are the things that, again, you can think about testing, and using scripted Selenium is a very powerful way to copy what your users are going to do. So those two are kind of around, core functionality, just making sure you can go end to end, maybe even check out, like put in some dummy card details or whatever makes sense for your site. So those are typical examples. It's about just testing, that same core functionality, bearing in mind that other things are changing, maybe other features are being added to the code base. And then the other one, would be the APIs that maybe your site depends on. Maybe making and validating typical GET and POST requests to those APIs, just to make sure that maybe if people do need to use another service to maybe send an SMS or as part of customer service or something like that. We have a little quote here actually, which is from the New Relic mobile engineering team, talking about that the mobile app that they provide as part of the observability solution for New Relic makes API calls from a really large code base. So tracking that they're all working, all those different APIs that the app relies on, takes some consideration and some planning. So to make sure that they're able to monitor any of those changes or failures, they've used their own sort of Selenium scripts written in Synthetics, which is the automated solution that New Relic provides. And that's what we're going to be looking at for this session, to just get hands-on and build some of these scripts. And you're going to walk us through kind of doing some of these in the next section. So looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
So Synthetics is one of these automated solutions. It gives us this framework that we can set up tests and run them on a regular basis. So this really kind of comes into that area of being proactive. Like proactive might mean just making sure that we're monitoring things, and might make sure that we set up alerts and so on. And Synthetics, using like one of these automated test solutions, it enables you to set these tests up and make sure that you catch and find the problems. And obviously we want to find them before our users do, we get kind of things all stack up after that in terms of the issues and problems that we may have. And as we said, if you use one of these automated solutions that can run on a regular schedule, you can set them up to run them every 1 minute, every 3 minutes, or just once a day, or to make sure that things are kind of, so you can stagger, or you can decide what kind of schedule that they run on. But, puts you in a great position if they're running on this regular schedule, because they're consistent and they're predictable. So great for having them in place, giving you that confidence. So the synthetic monitors that we're going to look at, they kind of, if you like, we can group them under the sort of different use cases that we're kind of talking about here, for making sure that our site is still reachable, it's still available. Maybe if we've added new parts to the site, new URLs, or maybe existing ones, we want to make sure that they're still available. If they are available, again, we want to make sure that folks can log in and go end to end. That's the functionality. But we also might want to benchmark performance. As we add more features, is the site becoming slower for customers to make their way through to final, if you like, product or purchase or whatever that may be. So being able to benchmark and run tests that should give us clean, fast performance to see how we can compare that with maybe, what our users are experiencing. So the different monitor types, or the different tests that we're going to set up, we're going to get hands-on with just next. We're going to use a ping monitor to check availability. Just drop in a URL, and you can run this monitor to run on a really high regularity, like every minute. And you can run it from a series of locations. So the synthetic solution that we're going to use today has 20 locations around the globe that you can use to hit your URLs from. So it's called a ping, but it's not actually a network ping. it does, it's just a HTTP sort of head and get request. So make sure that it brings back a 200 response. So super fast and great to run on that regular schedule. Functionality and performance. Well, on the functionality side, you're going to want to copy what maybe your users are going to be working through on your site. So we're going to look at using a scripted browser. So this solution that we work with today uses Chrome. As we kind of mentioned, we're going to use the Chrome Selenium IDE maybe to record a script. But it uses Selenium-based scripting, and there are some it's Node.js modules. So there's some Node modules available to pull in and kind of beef up and take your functionality of your scripting further. Essentially, it's what I describe it as. So each one sets up and runs on a virtual browser, runs the check for you, and gives you a pass or fail. Essentially, it does an assertion and checks that if any part of the script fails, you will get, you'll get a failure, and you can of course alert off of that. And then the other one would be the API endpoints. So this one again enables you to script and get results back, check that they validate. Very powerful. And again, we're going to get hands-on with these next. The performance one is also the Chrome browser, but this one doesn't have any scripting attached. It just visits, again, a singular page, a singular URL. It's generally basically waits until all the resources are downloaded and gives you a full sort of breakdown, if you like, of the performance of the download of that particular page. So that can be great, again, for testing new performance of new parts of your site that you're developing. And again, testing them from different parts of the world as well to make sure that, if you've got CDN networks and so on. So this is all being very proactive in kind of putting these in place. Okay, so we've got some labs where we get to set some of these up. So if you are able to jump into your new Relic account, we're going to use that. I'm going to do some walkthroughs to set this up so that we can see exactly what it looks like as well. So I'll do the first one here, if you like, Jan, and just talk about setting up a ping and a simple browser for page performance. Once we've got these set up, we'll be familiar with the UI and the steps, and then we can start adding some scripts. So let me just jump in now to my Synthetics account here, and I'm going to set up a ping monitor. And we've suggested here that you just give it a name, something like ping, and then whatever site name that you're going to hit. So we've got a couple of example URLs here for like this is a sample telco site, like a sample e-commerce site that I'm going to use. I've got a couple set up already. So we just need to drop in this URL. Similar, I've got a slightly sort of different part of the site here for the simple browser. And the use case here is we're pretending that, maybe you want to test out a new part of your site that you want to release, a new services page, for example. So we want to get some performance data back for this one. So this one is going to use the simple browser and get a download performance report on how that runs. So what does that look like? So let's set up a couple of these. So I'm in the new Relic UI here, and I'm in like just our training account. Now, if you want to follow along or get this set up, you need to just find your way to the Synthetics menu across the top. And I'm just going to add a little cursor here. And so when I come into Synthetics here, you'll have just one account. If you have multiple accounts, you better access these here. And you land on your landing page, you'll have a sort of sub-menu across here that starts with monitors. So I've got a few set up here already, and you can see I get some top-level details around things like their success rate. They run from different locations, so I get reports on whether any of those locations are failing. And then here is the different monitor types. So to set these up, we're going to use the Create Monitor button up here, top right. And we get some options. So these are the different monitor types. Here's our ping for availability, simple browser to get page load performance. So I'm going to start with these two, and then we'll get a chance to go a little bit further with the scripted options. So let's just go through the steps for each of these then. Let's set up a ping monitor to begin with. So here's where you'll have your account listed, and you give it a name. So this again, I'm going to call this one, let's call this one WeAreDevs ping, and then, you know, whatever the home page is. So I'm going to put in here site name. So I might, for this one, just see if I can grab maybe like the new Relic homepage, for example. So I'm just going to drop this in, copy in a URL, and just paste that in. So then I pretty much set up, ready to go. I just need to decide what regularity I want to run it on. And if it's something like a ping, you probably want to run it like as often as you can, just to make sure the URL is available. You get a few advanced options if you want to class things like a redirect as a failure, but I'm happy with that. And I just choose select locations. So here it's up to you then, you know, what ones make sense to you, but you know, whether where your customer base is, but you know, it's recommended to pick, you know, 3 to give you some good coverage. So I'm going to pick, looking at Jan's Beach there, I think I'm going to go Sao Paulo, Dublin, because that's where I am, and let's go for Portland as well. So save that monitor. So that one is pretty much set up. We'll just give it a second to refresh, and it takes me straight into my summary page, and it's already run one check for me already, and you can see there's Dublin up and running. So you can manually run these checks at any time if you come in here. Like if you've only got them set up to run not so often, you can just ad hoc run these, but that's it. It's set up, it's running, and I can check results, see the resources. Now remember, this one's a ping test, so I'm not going to get a huge amount of detail back. I just want to make sure that the site is reachable. And you can see it's starting to run these tests already, and they're all successful, which is great. If I just go to my Explorer drop-down, I'm going to come back to synthetics here as a way to just fast track me back to the synthetics menu. And then basically I'm going to repeat those steps, but this time create a simple browser. This one's going to give me my page load performance, remember. So let's do the same, but this time I'm going to call this one performance. Performance test. And again, this one's the new Relic site again. And we just drop in the URL, same options. I run this one again, just for now on 1 minute. And then again, so same setup, same steps, and I'm going to run them from those same locations. So those two are very simple. Just go through the steps, choose your locations. And you can see that the process is simple enough. Once this one lands, I'll be able to see then the difference in the results. So I'm just going to quickly show you here. Once we've had a couple of checks run, it'll take a little second. We jump into the results here. And we can see, yeah, we've got one of them already. We don't see much in the chart yet because it's taking a little while. But here we can see, look, we get the response, but also all of the assets that are downloaded. And we can see, look, if we see some large, maybe JPEGs and so on, they might be color coded green. And yeah, so you've got quite a lot happening there. And again, you can scroll down and see how things, you can filter if you've got a lot of resources. You can check like the JavaScript, see how long that's taking, if there's any blocking, or maybe focus on errors as well. So if I just go back to select type, I can just focus on any errors happening and explore those and so on. So that's the setup for just getting those two. So if you want to take a couple of minutes to set one of those up, you can ping any site you like or do a simple browser on any site you like today, maybe some of your pages or any sites pages that you're interested in. These are just examples. So take a couple of minutes to set one of those up. Let us know if anybody has any questions or you know, any problems setting those up. And we'll give you a couple of minutes to do that, and then we're going to give Jan a chance to walk us through setting up some scripted monitors. Okay, so there we go. So these are kind of super useful, again, just to get these in place, something like a ping monitor, things like the simple browser. You can use these to benchmark what your, bear in mind, this is like a VM that spins up with a fresh, clean browser. So it's going to give you, should give you like a great fast sort of set of results to compare what maybe different users are experiencing. But these are just useful to kind of run on a regular basis to build up this kind of reporting over time. It means that we're being proactive just by putting these in place, and we can rest assured that particular URLs or new URLs that we've pushed live are always available. And by adding like more than one location, you're covering off, it could be network issues in a particular region, for example. I think I was talking to a customer just recently who, was delighted to have set up some synthetic monitors because they were able to find, that there was a regional issue for their site from a particular region. So just being able to see that a ping was failing from one region meant they could quickly jump in and focus on find out why, what was happening in that region. Was there anything that they could put in place to resolve that? So yeah, we get loads of kind of sort of cool and interesting sort of surprise kind of delighted customers around just having some of these simple checks in place. So let us know how you're going with those. Hopefully you've had a chance just to set some up. You can obviously use these to test your own URLs, but you could use them to test as well other ones if you want to kind of aggregate data from the market for doing comparative testing. So yeah, it's great.
I mean, that's also in general a nice way to use these kind of tests, right? Also to understand whether your competition has issues. That might also be helpful for you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so maybe just another minute or so, just to give folks a chance to get one of those set up. Maybe maybe have some set up. Once they are set up, you can just always use your Explorer to come back to the synthetics menu, and you should start to see your monitors listed, and you start to see, the success rate and some of those top level details around them. If you want to drill into any of them as well and check out some of the results that you're getting, like I did, absolutely feel free to do that. Okay, so mine are all sort of set up here and running. Let's move on now to the next slide, which is where we are going to look at setting up some of these scripted tests. So this is how you can really test functionality or start to mimic user journeys and navigation pathways through your site. So the first one we thought we'd start with is the scripted API test. So this one uses a HTTP object, and I'm going to let Jan talk a little bit around this one and maybe help get up a scripted monitor with you guys here today.
Yeah, cool. I mean, since we are from New Relic, we'll be, of course, specific with New Relic, but I would also say that the idea behind those tests are quite generic and also vendor agnostic. And you can even run it like inside your own CI pipeline. You can have even these kind of regular checks being triggered in most CI tools, and so there are many ways to do it. of course, but since we are dealing with New Relic today, we'll show it on New Relic side. So New Relic synthetics scripted API tests, as you mentioned before, they are Node.js based. I personally also like to have JavaScript as the driving language for these kind of tests, because it's event driven, so it's not blocking. Most people know JavaScript. It's more or less the universal front end, the back end language. So doing that in Node.js is kind of natural, and with just some basic knowledge, you can even create already complex API journeys through your system, like doing a login call and doing whatever your web application usually does on the API side, and then doing a logout. I would say we just create a simple one here. So I will just take over the screen share.
Sure.
So here we go. So I'm also logged into my New Relic. I would say just let's create this scripted API test to monitor endpoint availability. Also give it a name. You can also set a period here. We'll be able to add tags to later also group and identify your tests easier. So you might have tests running against your staging or pre-production environments. You know, tag properly to get a quick understanding whether any of these tests has failed. And same here, we can have this running from different locations. So I add Singapore as well. And then we would write the script. There's embedded script editor here in New Relic for that. But we also have an API, so you can also just like create those scripts locally, even keep them versioned in a repository, and then just upload it through an API. So let's just do something like this. For all intents and purposes, we need the assert library from Node.js to do quick checks if something's failing or something's not working properly, that we get an exception being thrown. The script interrupts and shows us this exception. And the overall result of the script is, of course, a failure, which is being recorded. And for the sake of simplicity, the Node.js environment from New Relic provides a couple of objects already. And one of this is this $HTTP object, which is basically just the node request object with some sugar on top. So let's just get arbitrary URL. Maybe, as I said, we don't have to check our own site. We can also check others. So let's maybe just use a very well-known search engine as the test target. And if you connect from that, you have to provide a callback, which in case of the Node.js request goes with 3 parameters. That would be error, the response object, and in case you need it, you also get the request body. And here you can now do your assertions. You could either compare the error, or we just, again, do it for simplicity here that we do assert equals equal response status code. Just check whether that's 200. And if there's an error, we just give you also a nice verbose description of what's going on. So that's it. And before you save it, you will just validate it. So that will basically provision one of the runners where these synthetics tests runs on and executes a run. So that's successful. You would get, which I personally think is really neat. So from every request the script does, well, now it does only one, of course, but you get also that kind of deeper understanding what's actually going on. So how much time was spent into doing the DNS lookup, how much time was spending into the TCP connect and doing the SSL handshake, and then how long you actually waited for the bytes to return. So you also get some understanding how network latency impacts your availability. So now that we have done this, I will just save the monitor. And it will deploy and being run from various locations as we see it previously. So now we would have to wait a little bit to get some results. In the meantime, one thing which I am always asked, how would you store like credentials? For that, we have a secure way to store credentials along with the synthetic monitor. So you're actually being able to store secure credentials. They become available in your tests just as a variable. You can use them. They will never, the content will never be spilled out accidentally into any logs. So we parse the logs, make sure that nothing is leaked out accidentally from this secure credentials. And then let's just recheck whether in the meantime one of these tests has been executed. So we see the Singapore test did run, the Dublin test did run, and all of them don't have any failures. And as I mentioned earlier, these kind of tests, they can become really, really complex. So we did these tests that basically did a full user journey to our website, meaning logging in. We had a social community site, so that was like logging in, finding other users, sending around some messages back and forth, doing other things that people do on our website, and then logging out. So that was the complete user journey we just went through on the API level to make sure that the core functionality is available. And usually also the APIs don't change that frequently compared to your UI. So these kind of tests, doing it on UI level is already helps to find issues, and it's a big part of your tests. Okay, so we see that works. I'm tempted to actually make it fail by just doing a typo in my domain name. Now hoping that I didn't accidentally hit the only registered Google typo, which would work. So let's just manually trigger a recheck here and see if that fails. I hope so. And then I think we can go on and create a more complex scripted browser test. So that one is taking some time. So maybe it's trying to do a DNS lookup that doesn't work. I'm just also, here we go. Oh, beautiful. I was never that happy to see a failed test. So this one worked. Of course, we can dive into the results. And if those tests would have been done against our own side, we could even use New Relic to dive deeper into actually what has failed. Well, now we know it because I manually changed the URL. But in those cases, when you test your own website with scripted API test, or you can just dive deeper into it to understand what was going on. And you also see that like the DNS lookup, that's what I assumed, the time for the DNS lookup went up, which probably was the reason why this check took so long before it eventually failed. Okay, Liam, do you have something to add here? Otherwise, I would suggest that we go on to the...
No, I think that's great, Jan. The folks have the lab there if they want, and they can just copy and paste in that. Or when you go to create one, you get an example script as well, so you can take that as a format and work with it. But no, that's great to see that that put together and to see it kind of go end to end. And as you said, and as you said, you can hit a number of sites with that. You were just checking one URL there, but you could obviously, increase that number to hit the number of endpoints, because we want to kind of run these tests as quickly as possible, right? So if we want to hit a bunch of those, we absolutely can. And you can decide, whether to fail as soon as one of them fails, right? Or set it up in such a way so that it waits to run the test fully and then pass back to your reporting which ones did fail, right?
Also, you can also, of course, examine the results. So you can examine the body, whatever your API response, the JSON coming back. You can examine that as well. You can do assertions based on the content, just to make sure that you get the expected results.
Yeah, and one thing that we can look at later as part of that reporting, right, is we could, we can with a platform like this, we can run a query that exposes, that runner, that check as an event type, and see, as you said, expose some of the attributes around it to visualize.
Cool. I think you should take over quickly to show the next slide, because I don't have the slides here.
Sure. Yep. Let's get that shared again. So that's the scripted API test then. And then let's have a look next at the scripted browser. So this one is where we're going to test things like navigation, or maybe critical paths through shopping, or whatever that functionality is. So this one's, again, we're going to, we have a little sample script in here that you can copy and paste that just, hits a particular URL, which you can customize, and then very simply finds a couple of elements and interacts with them. So Jan is going to, again, show us how to set this one up and maybe put in a script or write our own scripts. And then once we've done that, we'll also then, after this, look at how we could use something like a script recorder from our Chrome plugin. So got a couple of ways that we'll work with this one, but I think it's nice to see it kind of built up step by step. So so this is the lab, so you can have this one and work with this one, but let's see how Jan talks us through setting up a scripted browser. Let's Jan share his screen.
Yeah, again. Screen share back and forth here today. Okay, cool. So let's just dive right into it. I would create a monitor checking the user flow and functionality, which is the scripted browser test. And of course, again, let's give it a nice name. Have it done every minute. Again, pick a couple of locations. And let's just go ahead and write the script. So we don't need the default script. Similar to what we had previously with the scripted API test, the environment provides like a couple of predefined variables out of the Selenium stack. If you're familiar with Selenium, you know there's a browser object available, and there's the Selenium WebDriver, which also gives you all the possibilities to find elements on the site, because this one is really like controlling a real browser. It's a real Chrome browser. That needs to be like opened virtually. We need to navigate to a website, and then we need to start find elements on that website which we either want to test for being present, but we also might just want to click on a certain link, finding a certain text box to enter your login credentials, whatever. Since I mentioned that previously, we have this insert secure credentials here. So if I would have defined secure credentials, I can also quickly do that here in the editor. So let's do it, right? So that's the $browser object, which, as I mentioned, is predefined here in the environment, and we would just get to our telco site. That's web portal telco nrdemo.com. So that is, just also quickly open that one. That's just like a fictional telephone shop. So let's open that. And since the Selenium library is promise-based, so you have this chain of commands which you always append with then, and then you provide a callback. So once the site is opened, the callback here is just executed. So here the first thing I want to do is I want to look on this page. I want to find the About link here, and I want to click on it to go to the About page. So this workflow is testing whether the About page is actually working and the navigation works. So I would ask the browser to find the element which is indicated by having a link text about on it. So this is done with the driver by link text. I'm looking for a link text which is about. And if I have got that one, I would just want to click on it. So I say click. And since we are in a promise-based callback, we also need to return this information to proceed. So here we just find the link text about and click on it, and we can proceed to the next step. So now the About page is loading, and once it's loaded, we get again a callback being called. So we have to append the then as we did before, providing the callback. And here we would, for example, maybe go back to the homepage. So we would find the link Acme Telco Home, or we might just look for a partial link text here just for the word home. So again, I would ask the browser on this page, on the About page, find an element which is indicated by a partial link text home. So now we'll find a link which includes the word home, and we find the first link on it and we click on that one. And again, since we are in a promise-based environment, we need to have this returned. And we could go on and go on and go on, make a real workflow through our page, find things like the login button, the login form, and so on and so on and so on. So for the sake of this one, I would just leave it like this. I need to validate it. And again, this will just provide a scripted browser runner somewhere. So it was successful, and nice thing is you get a screenshot of the test run automatically. So the last interaction that happened, which in this case is return to the homepage, that one is recorded as an image. We also get an understanding of what has been going on, which pages have we been clicking through, and for each of the page, similar to what the scripted API tests provide, you get like the understanding how the site performed, what assets have been loaded in which order, with all the details, how long the browser took to do that, to connect, and so on. So that gives you a very deep insight and the overall functionality and also the performance of your site. And in particular, of course, after deployment. So I will now save this monitor and let it run for a while. And if you have been following along, you might also just be able to do that. So let's just wait 1 minute until one of these tests has been running. Drum roll. And the first one has been executed in Sao Paulo. That one didn't fail. And yeah, we have even some understanding that this took like 5 seconds running from over there. So yeah, test is up and running and works. Liam, I would like to pass back to you then.
Excellent. Great stuff. Thanks for that, Jan. Great job. And yeah, it was cool to see the script built up from scratch, just adding a couple of simple steps. And, you know, so what about, as you mentioned here, if we want to go further and, you know, build these scripts, another way that developers might like to do it is to use some kind of recorder. Right? There's different ones that you can use on the market. The one that I always like to use, it has a little exporter as well. That means we can export it straight into a nice little commented format for our new Relic scripts, is the Selenium IDE recorder. So I'm going to have the fun job of creating the next script using a script recorder. So this is a really quick and easy and powerful way to, you know, fast track these scripts that you might like to create and run. And of course, then, as Jan said, you can build these up and set these up on as part of your sort of development pipeline, and store them and pull them in as well using our REST API, for example. So I'm going to use this Selenium Chrome extension. So you'll be able to find that on the all of the Chrome extensions, but these links are also in the deck here, in the slide deck, and also there's an exporter formatter for it as well, which I'm going to demo next. So let me walk through what this looks like, and then you'll get a chance to, if you download these as well and plug these in, you'll get a chance to have a go with these. But let's have a look and see then what these look like, because I've got Selenium IDE already kind of plugged in here to my browser, so I can jump up to the top here and kind of just pull that in. So what site might we use? Well, we could go for that the telco site that we were just looking at there, that Jan was using. This is like a sort of demo e-commerce site, right? So maybe this is the one I'd like to use. So what I'm going to do is just going to grab the URL for the homepage for this site, and then I'm just going to basically just drive it all from the IDE here, from the Selenium plugin. So I have a test here that's already set up and created. You can see I've added up, this one's a new Relic nav test to make sure that we can get to a particular part of our site, for example. And then here you can see.
Don't see, Liam, I don't see that. Maybe you just shared the
good point
window,
yeah.
the Chrome window, and not the full screen. So
perfect. Yep, good shout. Thank you for that. And let's go for the desktop. And
yeah, now it's better.
That should be better. Thank you, Jan. Jumping in there and saving the day. Great stuff. So yeah, here we see the little pop-up that comes up from the IDE. So this is great. Here we have a test that's already put in place, and you can see it's recorded all of the commands and the targets as we go through it, and any values that get entered for it. If it's like interacting with a site, putting in values. So how do we set these up? Well, we just basically choose to start recording. And it will launch a new browser. Now, what I might do is you get a fresh, clean browser window. What I just do is close that one and go for a new test. So let me add a new test to start exactly from scratch. So we can set it up, give it a name. So let's call this our Acme navigation test, right? So similar to the one that Jan put together. Let's set up this test case. That's okay. Let me stop recording that one and I'll create a new one. So here's my new test. It's started here. So I'm just going to hit the record button for this test, and then I'll get my fresh, clean new window, and I'm going to drop in this URL. I think maybe it picked up the other URL, but that's fine. We'll get the idea, and you can see down here now, if I just move around, I can see the Selenium IDE is recording. So basically, you're just going to grab each of your steps as you go through it. So you might say, yeah, like Jan did, I want to go to the About section and maybe make sure that I can download a few of these. Maybe then I want to change to go to our Services section. Maybe that's of interest, and I bring up this part of the site. So I'm able to maybe navigate through. As we said, we could even go to like the login page and add in some details here. Whenever you're ready, you can just choose to get the window back up. So I'm going to come up to my window menu and find my Selenium IDE window, which should pop up. You can see here, this recorded all those steps. It's opened that URL, and then it's gone through each of those steps for me. I can just hit stop recording, and that test is saved and ready. There's my Acme nav test. So I can just use this little action menu or right click on it and export. Now here's that extra little extension that we added, so that you can actually choose the new Relic synthetics format. It's still just going to download a JavaScript file, but this one just sort of gives it a nice bit of formatting and makes it nice and easy to import straight into our synthetics script. So let me export that and choose where to save it into my downloads. Let me drop it into my particular scripts folder and save that. And then basically I have that to store somewhere or just a copy and paste in. So let me show that in my Finder and just open it up in some kind of editor. And then I can just grab the script and yeah, copy and paste that in. So you can see there, got a little bit of commenting at the top here. And then as we saw there, it's recorded all of those steps for me and got a nice bit of formatting as well. So copy, and I'm going to bring this back to, let's bring it back to my, here we go, not that one. Let me come back to this one here. There we go, too many tabs open. All right, so I'm in synthetics and I'm going to just copy and paste that in. So you can see here, I've got these tests already set up. If I create one just like Jan did, I'll be able to paste that in. So if you want to have a go at creating one of those, by all means do that. So let me call this one my Acme nav test. And then same again. So I'm going to run this one every 5 minutes, for example. Select my locations and let's just paste in the script. So it says same steps. I'm just going to replace this code with this one. And you can see that's dropped in there. And I can develop that, work that up, or update it as well. So again, validate, and it will provision one of those servers. This one's running from Dublin, and just make sure that I get a valid 200 and everything is happy with that navigation test. So that's just a little walkthrough of those steps. If you'd like to have a go at that. That one is, look, they're successful, and I get like a waterfall and a script log for each of those stages as it progressed through. So if it does fail, you'll get that script log as well to see how far it got. And it's nice then to see that you get the little screenshots and stats of the different parts of the site that you navigate through. So really interesting, really useful, and again, giving us that security and that peace of mind. So let me give folks a few minutes to maybe have a go, putting one of these together if you'd like to, and yeah, see what ones that you come up with. Great stuff. So let's take we'll give folks a few minutes, Jan, shall we, just to put this into their account if they'd like to create one. So we'll give folks a minute or so to do this one. And then we'll have a chance that you guys should have a few tests in place. They'll be running. You've got some data, and we can look at how we can start sharing and reporting on those monitors to make sure that if any do fail, we can get some, share some results, like either through a dashboard or maybe sharing SLA reports to see what kind of what sort of performance and uptime and success rates we're getting from our tests over time, or when they do fail, why they failed.
I mean, those Selenium recorders, they are really useful to like create some kind of scaffolding for your test. Usually just providing the initial steps, which you might then just also refine to not only have like a click journey or interaction journey, but then also just read what is on your page, check for certain elements to be there, which are supposed to be there, even if they're not elements you want to interact with in the test, but you can just like find those elements and make sure that they are on screen. If there's a particular image that is supposed to be loaded, you can check all of these things. That's something you would usually not do with the recorder. For that, you would have to edit the final script and put these tests in place as well.
Yeah, that's great. Absolutely. Yeah, just exactly. Gives you that kind of fast track sort of structure for your scripts. Absolutely. Yeah. So you could use it as the spine and then make your adjustments and amendments to it. And great as well to get that kind of set, that script log and those screenshots as well to see how far they go if you do get any failures from those scripts. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, super quick and easy, right? To get those recorded. Yeah, great way just to copy and paste and throw those in. But just gives you the option, right? And takes that kind of that work out of it. If you've already got some scripts set up, then absolutely you can just bring those in. But if not, and you want to jump in there and add this very quickly, yeah, so easy to use.
Yeah. I mean, after all, it is easy, but there's also some work behind. So you have to understand what you actually need to test on your site, and that's not that easy. So you need to do proper analysis before and create your tests in the right way, and also keep them up to date. So that's also from my own experience, usually something that quickly falls over and is not being done like after some time. So you have to really include that also in your development routine to have proper end tests running as part of your development cycles, and also keep them up to date if you change something. So you can have that confidence that your tests are working.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Like making it like fast to create them and fast to run them just brings it into your domain so that you can kind of set those tests up quickly and as you said, it's more probably about thinking about what to test and making sure that the different pathways and key sort of routes through, or things that your users might like to do, that you've thought those through, and make sure that you can get all the way to the end. And but a great way exactly to tease out maybe you might be getting intermittent problems with the UI. Sometimes people are on different devices or whatever, and you can kind of test and make sure that things are at least working from a clean browser point of view, and make sure that they're working. And as you mentioned, there's other node modules as well that you can add in to add to that kind of WebDriver functionality that you're using.
Yeah, that's I mentioned that briefly, that if you want to, for example, test a registration journey where you have to also read an email and get the email content. So the synthetics environment provides all of these things that you can connect to an IMAP or POP account and read emails as well from there. So it's incredibly flexible. And you can even have a synthetics runner locally in your own environment. There you can then add whatever node modules you want for any kind of special tests. You might also be able to test internal APIs with that, which are not internet facing. So that's an incredible flexible system which New Relic has here.
Yes, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, and so we were picking all of those locations there from around the globe. You can absolutely set up what we call a private location, right? And it's essentially what we call a private minion, and you can run that in your own environment to hit any maybe internal URLs or URLs behind particular firewalls, for example. So it doesn't have to be an external URL as well. So give you lots of flexibility there. Excellent. Should we look at just then
Let's go on.
Let's have a look at then, if everything's working, that's great, but what if it's not? Or how do we chart these over time? Well, two main ways, right? For those synthetic monitors, you've got SLA reports for all of them, but also individually. And you can then, these are easy to export as a CSV for how they're performing over time. So what's the success rate of your deployments? This can help you if you've got specific monitors set up around releases, then this is a great way to chart them. How is the stability of your service compared to, as you see the increased deployment rate go up, are you managing to keep kind of are you seeing more failures, if you like, in these tests? We call them monitors as well as tests. And this might help you then make decisions, right, on pushing ahead with features or maybe regressing back to a more stable base for your code. But then also, if they are having issues, where are they, which locations are failing, what monitors are failing, an idea here would be to use something like a dashboard. So you can just pull in the results of these and chart them. So which ones are failing, what locations, or maybe that benchmarking that performance. Of course, we get that detail in the monitor that we were looking at there, and Jan was kind of running some ad hoc tests. You've got some top level stats and you can drill into the results. But how about if we want to share these results, with the rest of the team, so they've got visibility for them. So this is, again, ties in with being proactive, adding dashboards and reports that we can share with teams so they can see how we're progressing. So to set that up, we've got, so if I'm in just the synthetics main menu here, we're working on monitors. You've got an option here, a menu item called the SLA report. And this would generally focus on all of your monitors that you've set up so far. So that's great. It can give you this kind of visibility of daily, uptime, weekly, and monthly. And this is adding together all of your monitors. But as we said, you might want to focus in on a particular one. Maybe if this ping site or a page performance, or maybe one of your scripted tests. So each of these has an SLA report available in there. So you somehow want to be able to expose these reports for your monitors. So these come under the service level agreement kind of sort of acronym, really. And again, how we're focusing on, duration, uptime, how many of them are successful, over the days, the weeks, or the months. And you can, share these with teams, share the report, make it a publicly accessible link, and even redact the query string to make it a super simple URL to share. So SLA reports are really useful. But what about adding some dashboards? Well, a dashboard, let's have a look at this. And we've provided a couple of queries to help build these dashboards so you can get hands-on and create a quick dashboard here for yourselves. Let's say we want to see what this uptime of a monitor might be, or what error messages we're getting, or what page performance looks like from the different locations. So here we've got a query language. This is the new Relic query language, but it's very similar to SQL. So we're going to run selects on a event type called synthetic check. To monitor them sort of over time, we can use a percentage function, and within that, it's going to count the results and then specify a particular condition where the result, for example, equals success. And we can then narrow that down to a particular monitor. Pick which one, and this will the system is intuitive, and we'll look at what monitors that you've already set up, and you can choose these from a list. So it's like sort of auto-complete option, and you might chart this then over week. Here we're going to count the results and just use our group by function. So the group by we use is facet for our query language, but that's essentially what we're doing here, is counting those results from those different synthetic checks that we're running. So let's have a look at setting some of these up. So if I go to my dashboard section here, I've got a bunch of dashboards already here, but if I wanted to create one, I can just call this one synthetic smoke tests, for example, and I'm going to set this up in my training account here. So we add a new chart, and we're going to add a chart as opposed to text and images. And then we get the ability to type in our queries. So it's going to be the synthetic check that is the event type. It's what's running and recording the checks every time that they run. We're going to select back from that. And again, this might be where we might want to do a count on the results. So we could select the results or count everything from that synthetic check, and then just group the results basically. So let's facet these by error or result. Let's see what results we're getting. So we can just run some of these and then kind of tailor the queries to see, okay, how many are successful, how many are failing. So we can add multiple facets. So we can add like messages or what errors we're getting from these. So we start to kind of build out these queries. So how many are successing and how many are failing. And then we could choose to visualize them like in different ways, successes and failures. So we've got a couple of examples here to give you ideas. The only one that's slightly different is, actually we don't have it here, but if we wanted to get some more detail around them, there's another event type synthetic. We have the synthetic check and the synthetic
request. It's synthetic request.
Request,
So
exactly.
the
Thank
individual
you.
request.
Thank you, Jan. Synthetic request. Mine went blank for a minute there. But this one might be useful for getting like some page performance data out, average duration from that synthetic check, and using the facet for the location. So let's look at maybe rather than just the count, let's get some performance data. So let's here go for the average duration from our monitors. Again, we might want to specify a specific monitor. So let's add in the where clause, and here we're going to search for monitor name and equals, and here's those monitors that I set up. So it's the page performance one that maybe we're interested in. So I've labeled them up so it's quite clear, and let's then change the facet to see the results split out by the different locations. And if I run this one, we can see, okay, different locations that they're running from for this particular one. And we're getting timing information as well. Might not work as a pie chart. Maybe we'll go for a bar chart, or again, back to like a table. So there's different ways that you can sort of create your dashboards. But once you kind of build these up over time, the percentage count one, if you've only just set these up, it'll take a little while to build meaningful data, but it will give you that kind of that percentage count over time. At the moment, 1 week ago, but these would be great to set up. So I want to be kind of like pretty much up on time. So this one is, again, we provide you with these links and these queries, so you can take these away and build up a dashboard in your own time. You have this free account now, so you're welcome to run those checks and set up those charts as well. The last thing that we might want to do then is set up an alert on a synthetic monitor. So here, obviously, if one of these does fail, how can we push out an alert notification? Well, you know, your observability platform, you can either push it into that, or with New Relic, we have a synthetic alert that we can just set up straight away and easily. So that would be in our alerts and AI section here. And you've got a whole list of options here, but I'm going to go to my policies. Policies are what you specify your conditions that might be failing in. So I'm going to see if I've got one here. So I'm actually just going to create a quick policy. I'm going to call this Liam's policy for now and create the policy. Really what I want to do is just get to the conditions here to create a condition and then choose my synthetics. So this chooses, do I want to specify single or multiple location failures? Well, right now, any location or any monitor that fails is what I'm interested in. So I'm mainly interested in like in a login test, or maybe that navigation script. So when it comes to defining the thresholds, really, it just says a violation will occur whenever a monitor fails a check. So there's no real condition to specify. But let me just call that one synthetic fail. And then we can add like a runbook URL to give folks an idea, a bit of detail around that monitor, what it's supposed to be doing and so on, and then set up that condition. And then that will, you know, create an alert, if you like, in the platform, but we'd want to push out a notification for that. So we can add a notification channel and then maybe choose a Slack message, a Slack channel, or an email, for example, that we might want to push that out to. Yeah, so that enables you to kind of really get that full proactive monitoring end to end in place. So that's the content that we wanted to cover today, and I hope that was interesting and useful for folks. If you'd like some links to learn more about synthetics or proactive monitoring, we've got a couple of links here in the deck. This one will take you to the docs for New Relic all about synthetic monitoring, how to get started, and all those different monitor types. Or if you'd like kind of more sessions, you know, like this, that we do have a nerd log as well, a Twitch TV channel, or we've also got content on our Learn site for learn.newrelic.com. So that's pretty much what we hope to achieve. Have we got maybe any questions that we'd like to take from folks?
Hello, thanks for the workshop and for the nice session, Liam and Jan. We do have some questions. Let me just get you back on the screen, basically also with the questions.
Yes.
So yeah, like I said, first of all, thanks again. It was quite interesting. Also, our team has basically got some nice information. Let's jump into the questions. So it's a bit unstructured, so different types of questions. Sasha is asking, are there limitations on requests per second? I think it relates to the New Relic platform, I would say.
Yeah, I can take that. So there is, like, you can execute just tests on a granularity of 1 minute minimum. So then within the tests there are no limits, but still keep in mind this is not a denial of service tool. So we try to keep the impact on your site or on sites of competitor you might want to test. With that, we try to keep the impact as low as possible. So it's not a pen test tool, it's not a hammering tool. It should just like behave like a regular user would do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then there is a comment from Manfred who says he has no question, but he just wants to thank you for this powerful and yet simple solution. And then we have another question about mobile browser support.
No, so right now these synthetics tests have only a regular desktop Chrome, a headless desktop Chrome behind. This is on the roadmap to support multiple browsers, not only Chrome, but maybe also Firefox and Safari, but right now it's only Chrome.
Okay, and only Chrome on desktop, right?
Yeah, only the desktop Chrome.
Yeah, okay. Good, then the next question. For an e-commerce app, what would be the common tests to start with? Do you have any advice?
I have. So for you just have to ask yourself, what's your site primary goal? So for an e-commerce app, you want to earn money. So you want to make your customers browse through your products. You want to make them put this into the shopping cart, and they should go to the checkout. That's how you earn your money, and this is what you should actually test. Just go to your site, browse through the products you offer, put them into the shopping cart, do the checkout, and then maybe even follow up to the moment when you go to PayPal or to Stripe or to whatever clearance you do, so that you're sure that these things work as the scripted browser flow. The other thing which might also be useful is to test the APIs of your clearance partners. So if you run payment through PayPal, through Stripes, whatever third party you might also just want to test their APIs for availability. So you get a notification before actually your customers cannot use this particular checkout method, so that you can react proactive on it and not only react after customers hit some errors.
Yeah, they're great examples there, Jan. I think, as you said, it's about thinking about your service and site. I think other things to think about are like entry points, where users might be entering your site from, and again, maybe just some initial monitoring or working out where those typical or critical pathways are through your site, because users may take different routes through your site than you would imagine, right? So it's thinking about those and then making sure that, for example, maybe in different locations you might have to add tax or not tax to shopping carts. So it really is about maybe making sure that you can go all the way end to end. Those are the things that probably are worth thinking about. And on that kind of question there about like supporting different browsers, you can make the head look like it's coming from a different browser, which might not be exactly the test that you're looking for, but you can also set up the tests to appear like they're running on slower data networks, for example. That might be probably the closest that you could get to that right now as a short-term fix. You can pull in values and make it look like it's a 2G or a 3G data network that the test is running from. So that might help.
Mm-hmm. Would it also make sense to kind of play around with the user agents or something?
That doesn't change. I mean, if you play with the user agent, that doesn't change anything. The actual rendering, because you're still having the Chrome engine behind, right? So you can of course make it appear as an Internet Explorer, which uses the Chrome engine or the Edge browser, but it doesn't change the actual rendering.
Okay, Dan, thanks for these answers. Then another question from Jens. What are some common pitfalls that would make the tests not work?
Well, I think Jan, you might be able to add a bit more detail around this, but I think typical ones would be like timeouts, would it be? Or maybe structuring your script to make sure you allow for, if you're trying to find an element on a page, it's about, stacking them so that you make sure there's enough time to hit them. I think that would be a typical one.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the synthetics checks have a timeout of 180 seconds if they're running from one of our locations. If you run them in a private location, which we mentioned previously, you have more control over the overall timeouts. For every step you're doing, you can wait individually long. So you say, this particular the registration to your website, if you want to test that might just take like 5 seconds usually. So you would maybe wait a bit longer for the step to complete than for other steps, which you would expect to be completed within a second or something like that.
Yeah. So you can put those weights in, can't you, Jan? You can put in your custom weights as part of the script.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, the usual pitfall for a test not to work is you change something on your page and the test is not modified along. So that's what I would really recommend, to make this part of your development cycle. Actually, it should be part of your development cycle, to keep the tests up to date, or even to write the tests before you actually start developing. But I know from my own experience that's rarely done. So breaking your tests because you updated some of the layout, that happens frequently. But that's also a way of like designing your tests properly and finding the right selectors, so you're not bound to specific page structures to find certain elements, right? So if you change the position of the login form somewhere, just don't be too specific when you make the test, finding that login form and typing the login data in. Don't be too specific, try to be as generic as possible. Then you can change the underlying page structure without impacting the tests.
Okay, thanks for that one. And last question for today, for this session is, how about compatibility with analytics, specifically Google, or interference with ad servers?
That shouldn't be an actual issue, because most of the third-party tracking scripts are filtered out by the synthetics environment anyway. So your test run would probably not even appear in Google in Google Analytics. I'm not sure about the ads, but in the end, the ads being displayed are part of your user experience if you have them. And this is also something you might even want to test, right? So you might want to test whether your advertisement partner delivers your ads properly, and you might want to get a notification actually early that it doesn't work anymore. And so if you monetize your website through ads, you might want to know that it's not working right now before you actually lose your revenue.
Yeah, that's a good point. Liam, any take on that?
Yeah, I mean, we would sort of, I guess, recommend that, synthetics can give you, as we said, this kind of fail and also this performance data, but it's not. You also might want to monitor things from the browser perspective as well, and that way you can kind of combine your real user monitoring data with your synthetic data. As we said here, we can go so far with synthetics, but the experience, as Jan talked about, you might be interested in those kind of core web vitals. How much is your page kind of shifting as the layout builds? Things like this. How long are they waiting to interact with the page? These are things which are tough to test with synthetics because of the different variables that may be in the local environment, or the different ways that users might be experiencing your site. The ads can change. They can they'd be updating by a third party, for example. So mixing real user monitoring observability with synthetics is probably a recommended best practice.
Okay, thank you very much. So basically that was the last question. Is there anything you want to add? Maybe to mention any additional resources, some other tools and stuff that could be useful in combination with synthetics, and yeah, some nice last words.
Yeah, and have you got anything to add? I would just like to thank everyone for tuning in to this session today, and for the great the interest and the questions. You know, that's really appreciate them. So yeah.
Yeah, that's all I can also say. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening to us.
Perfect. Thank you very much for everyone who basically joined us at the later stage and wasn't able to watch from the beginning. No problem. We will have the recording on the WeAreDevelopers platform as well, so you can always rewatch it and get something out of it. We will also send it out in our wrap-up newsletter today, so you haven't missed any important parts. Yeah. So with that said, I just want to say again, thank you very much, Liam. Thank you very much, Jan. We are going in a short break of around 1 hour and 15 minutes. And we are coming back at sharply 1 p.m. with a cool session about how to chart the journey to continuous deployment with a value stream map. So make sure to get back at 1 p.m. and see you later. Bye bye.
Have you found your dream job as a developer? Or are you stuck in an unfulfilling job? On WeAreDevelopers.com, you find over 1,000 jobs in Europe that fit the tech stack that you want to work with, and salaries go up to $130K. All you have to do is create a free profile, and you automatically get matched with jobs that fit your requirements. So what are you waiting for? Create your free profile and let companies apply to you now.